Welcome to today's explainer. We are going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about the business mechanics behind the world's absolute most famous drink. I mean, we interact with this company almost every single day, right? But the crazy thing is, most of us probably misunderstand them completely. We look at that iconic red branding and we just naturally assume we're looking at a massive beverage manufacturer. But as you'll see today, what's actually under the hood is this incredibly complex machine of logistics, licensing, and honestly, psychological engineering.
Okay, so let's just dive right into this with a really simple question that has a completely shocking answer. When you walk in and buy a bottle of Coke from your neighborhood store, who actually made the liquid inside that bottle? Or, for that matter, who built the physical bottle? Who drove the truck that dropped it off? Instinctively, you'd probably think, well, Coca-Cola did, obviously. But you know what? That assumption is entirely wrong. Here is the mind-blowing reality. The Coca-Cola company itself does not actually manufacture the finished drink you buy. They don't even own the delivery trucks that bring it to your local store. Instead, they're basically just the gatekeepers of a highly protected secret recipe. What they actually produce is just the concentrated syrup. That's it. They sell this heavily guarded concentrate, along with the very lucrative rights to use their famous brand, to thousands of independent partners all over the globe. In the business world, this is brilliantly known as an asset-light model. See, Coca-Cola shifts all the massive capital risk over to those independent bottling partners, while keeping all the profit from the secret formula for themselves. I mean, just think about how ridiculously expensive it is to build sprawling factories, maintain massive fleets of heavy delivery trucks, and manage huge warehouses. Coca-Cola simply opts out of all that heavy lifting. The independent bottlers take on the financial burden of buying the local water, adding the carbonated gas, manufacturing the physical bottles, and distributing the whole shebang. Coca-Cola just sits comfortably at the top of the chain, selling the high-margin syrup and letting the bottlers take on the actual operational risks.
And because this global supply chain is just so incredibly efficient, they flawlessly deliver an astonishing 2 billion servings every single day. Just let that number sink in for a second. 2 billion times a day, someone, somewhere on this planet, opens one of their products. That's basically a quarter of the global population. By relying on local bottlers who know their specific regional markets inside and out, Coca-Cola has managed to penetrate even the most remote corners of the globe. We're talking about places where you might honestly struggle to find basic medicine, but you will absolutely find an ice-cold Coke.
Now, you might be wondering, with all these different bottlers making it, how do they keep it consistent? Well, because of this tightly controlled logistical network, you get exactly the same taste experience whether you are drinking it in London or a remote village in Pakistan. That is the true magic of the concentrate model. The local bottlers might be tapping into entirely different water sources, sure, but because the foundational syrup, the literal soul of the drink, comes directly from Coca-Cola, the uniformity is absolutely ironclad. And it's that consistency that builds such immense global trust. But wait, it goes way beyond just that iconic red can. Their diversification strategy is so vast that they actually own over 500 different brands globally. 500! They know better than anyone that consumer tastes are always shifting. People are constantly looking for healthier options, maybe an energy boost, or just a morning pick-me-up. And Coca-Cola has meticulously built a safety net so massive that it captures almost any beverage choice you could possibly make throughout your day. Think about it like this. Whenever a beverage category like water, sports drinks, or coffee starts to really take off and grow, they just simply launch their own product, or they straight up acquire the market leader. So whether you grab a Dasani water after a run, a Powerade during a game, or a Costa coffee in the morning, Coca-Cola has you covered. They aren't losing sleep if you decide to stop drinking soda because they have aggressively bought up or developed the exact alternatives you're switching to. They aren't just a cola company, they're essentially a total beverage monopoly. All right, let's peel back another layer of the onion here and look at how they literally dominate the consumer's mind. Their entire focus is on selling an emotional connection, one they've built over 100 years, rather than just selling colored water. Let's be real, any reasonably skilled chemist could go into a lab today and synthesize a sugary, carbonated, caramel-colored drink, but they absolutely cannot synthesize the brand. Coca-Cola pours massive amounts of its revenue into advertising to ensure you never view their product as a chemical mixture, but as an experience. They sell happiness, celebrations, and memories. When you reach for a Coke over a competitor, you aren't doing a blind taste test. You are acting on a full century of brilliant psychological conditioning. The real secret here relies on a deeply ingrained psychological habit loop. See, even in a terribly bad economy, It's an affordable luxury that triggers a hit of dopamine, creating what economists call inelastic demand. This allows them to raise prices without actually losing sales. This is economic psychology at its absolute finest. When times get tough and people have to cut back on, say, expensive vacations or luxury cars, they still usually have a few spare coins for a small treat. That precise combination of caffeine and sugar triggers a mild but highly rewarding dopamine release in the brain. Because this habit loop becomes so deeply ingrained in our routines, the demand becomes inelastic. That just means Coca-Cola can confidently hike up their prices to combat inflation, and their sales volume will barely even dip, simply because consumers just refuse to give up their affordable daily reward.
But here's the catch. Capturing the consumer's mind means absolutely nothing if you cannot completely control the physical environment where they make their purchase. You could have all the dopamine loops and emotional connections in the world, but if a competitor's drink is just slightly easier to grab at the store, you lose the sale. Coca-Cola fully understands that retail real estate is a battlefield, and they wage a highly calculated war to control the point of sale.
Walk into almost any corner shop in the world, and what do you see? A branded red fridge. By offering those iconic red fridges at a massive discount, or even for free, and buying up premium eye-level shelf space, they capture the foot traffic and essentially dictate exactly what the customer chooses. The catch with those discounted fridges? The shopkeeper is strictly only allowed to stock Coca-Cola products inside it. Furthermore, they pay an absolute premium to ensure their bottles are sitting right at eye level in supermarkets. It's exactly like ranking first on an internet search engine. Capturing that prime physical real estate ensures they intercept the customer long before the competition even has a fighting chance. So the crucial takeaway here is that while retail feels like their dominant space, their massive B2B or business-to-business partnerships with global fast food chains might actually be their most profitable secret. We've talked a ton about bottles and cans in stores, which use that asset-light bottler model. But there is yet another layer to this onion, the fountain strategy. Think about every time you go to the cinema or hit up a massive global fast food chain like McDonald's. You aren't getting a bottle. You're getting a cup filled straight from a fountain. Now, the absolute genius of this fountain strategy is how they lock in astronomical margins by only supplying a bag-in-box of syrup while completely forcing the restaurant to cover the costs of the water, the ice, the cups, and the labor. In this specific model, Coca-Cola doesn't even have to worry about glass or plastic bottles, let alone shipping millions of gallons of heavy liquid water. Nope, they just ship a concentrated bag of syrup tucked into a cardboard box. The fast food chain provides the local tap water, the carbon dioxide gas for the fizz, the ice, the paper cup, the lid, the straw, and pays the employee who serves it to you. Coca-Cola's overhead is virtually zero, making the profit margins on these exclusive restaurant deals practically unheard of. Let's move on to their most advanced strategy, revealing how this 100-year-old legacy company somehow operates exactly like a modern tech startup. You might think a century-old syrup company would be kind of stuck in its ways, right? But they are relentlessly evolving. They realized a while ago that the future isn't just in logistics and branding, it's heavily reliant on data.
So, you know those cool touchscreen freestyle machines you see in malls? They actually use those to secretly mine data on what flavors people are mixing, allowing their AI to rapidly launch perfectly targeted new bottled products, like peach Sprite, for example. These aren't just fancy soda dispensers, they are literally sophisticated data collection terminals. Every single time someone creates a custom mix on that touchscreen, that data is beamed straight back to headquarters in real time. Instead of spending millions on focus groups to guess what people might want next year, their artificial intelligence analyzes this live data to spot microtrends instantly. If they notice, say, thousands of people in a specific region suddenly mixing Sprite with peach flavoring, they bypass all the guesswork and immediately launch a bottled peach Sprite right into that local market, knowing with absolute certainty that the demand is already there.
Which brings us to a fascinating final thought for this explainer. Considering how they use complex logistics and live AI data to actually predict our desires, do you still think they just make soda? We fully peeled back the onion today. From offloading all their manufacturing risks, to aggressively dominating shelf space, to triggering biological dopamine loops, and now using artificial intelligence to mine your personal flavor preferences in real time, they are a literal masterclass in business engineering. That red can, it's just the shiny interface we happen to interact with. The true product is the brilliant invisible system running behind the scenes. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey, the next time you pop open that lid, take just a second to think about the massive, invisible machine that brought it directly to your hands.